today. Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. But what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boasting, and all such rejoicing is evil. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Shell said, I thought for sure you'd get to that 17th verse this morning. I said, well, hold on. It's a coming this afternoon. So we'll get to that 17th verse in just a little bit. As a matter of fact, when I was thinking of preaching this message, it was the 17th verse that I was thinking about. And it speaks a lot. I mean, there's volumes of messages that could come out of the 17th verse. But it's very simple to think about what it means when he said, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. And I do want to rethink this just a little, or not rethink it, but maybe reiterate just a little bit that we make mistakes in life. And James is telling us how to avoid those mistakes in the future. Now, we're not just talking about necessarily buying the wrong things or anything like that, but overall the plans that we make in life. We make mistakes by leaving God out. And that's what I really wanted us to see, and then end up in the way we're going to this afternoon. But this morning we said that we should avoid the mistake of making foolish plans. Foolish plans. They constructed a plan, they chose a plan. We're talking about these that James is talking to. They calculated the period of time. They considered the purpose of this plan. They computed what kind of profit there was going to come out of this plan. And they thought they had it all together, but they left God out. He said, all this planning is evil. It's evil. They regarded the will, they did not regard the will of God. They forgot God through it all. The second thing we looked at, and we kind of ended a little ways into this one, so I'll finish it up, but we need to avoid the mistake of foolish uncertainties. I think when I think about the word foolish, I think of the book of Proverbs. Continually, the Proverbs are talking about two different kinds of men, two different kinds of people. The first one that the book of Proverbs talks about is wise men. Wise. I want to be wise, don't you? I really want to be wise. And the one that wrote the book of Proverbs, or the biggest part of the book of Proverbs, is Solomon, and Jesus said he was the wisest man that ever lived, the wisest person on the face of this earth. The second man that the book of Proverbs talks about is a man that I don't want to be, and that's a foolish man. I don't want to be a foolish person. I want to make all those wise decisions. I want to have all of those wise plans. And if I'm going to be wise, it must involve God. If it doesn't, I'm going to be foolish. So what I said this morning, to avoid the mistake of foolish uncertainties. You see, what these people did is they failed to grasp how complex life is. It's complex. They failed to grasp the uncertainties of life. And then I want to get to this one as we close out this point and open up for verse 17. They failed to grasp the brevity of life, or how brief life is. That's something that we don't need to forget. We don't need to forget how brief our life is. It's at its best, life is very, very short. I'm 58 years old. We're just talking about around 2 months, I'm going to be 59 years old. And I get to thinking about that, and I get to thinking about how long I got left. I'm like Shell. I hope Jesus just comes back and takes us. I don't have to go through death or anything like that. We don't have to experience all of those things. I mean, I wouldn't, that's the way I'd like to go. I think if Jesus raptures his church, that's going out here like in a Cadillac or something, you know. But life's brief. It's short. I mean, it just seems like yesterday that I was 15 years old. It just seems like yesterday that Shell and I got married, you know. That means nothing to God. It is to God. He said it's like a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. Brother Larry Wickler said that means that Jesus was born. Let's see how he put it. Jesus died yesterday. We live today, and Jesus is coming back tomorrow. Something like that. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but time's nothing to God. But we need to recognize that our time's short. And we don't know how short it is. I mean, it's terribly short. How could these people know whether or not they will be alive tomorrow or sometime next year to buy and get game?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Death's coming, and it's coming suddenly. And it's coming unannounced. Let me give you several scriptures. I got them in my notes if you want to jot them down. In the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter number 29, verse number 15, he said, "For we are strangers before thee, and sojourners, as were all our fathers. Our days on earth are as a shadow, and there is none abiding. The shadow's gone." Job 7:6, Job said, "My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope." Job 9:25 and 26, "Now my days are swifter than a post. They flee away. They see no good. They are passed away as the swift ships, as the eagle that hasteth to the prey." Job 14:1 and 2 says, "Man that is born of a woman is of few days, and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower, and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not." Psalm 39:4 and 5 says, "Lord, make me to know mine end, and the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. Behold, thou hast made my days as an handbreadth, and mine age is as nothing before thee." In other words, it don't mean nothing to you. "Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity, Selah." Psalm 103, verse 15 to 16. "As for a man, his days are as grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourisheth. For the wind passeth over it, and it is gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more." In other words, we're here, and then we're gone. It's that quick. James says it is as a vapor. Here for just a little bit, and then it vanisheth away. Think about that rich farmer over in the book of Luke, chapter number 12. He's going to do a lot of things. I'm going to read it so I can get everything right here. But Luke chapter number 12, verse 19 and 20. Luke chapter number 12, verse 19 and 20. Listen to what the Lord's telling about this rich man. All right, get to the right place. Luke chapter number 12, verse 19, he said, "I will say to my soul," this is what the rich man said. He said, "I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said unto him, he left God out, didn't he?
Yeah.
"But God said unto him, Thou fool, shall all those things be which thou hast provided. He had plans. He made big plans. He had riches. He had, all of this I'm going to do tomorrow. All of this I'm going to do for years to come. And God said, today you're going to die. Today your soul's going to be taken from your body. And whose is all this going to be? It doesn't matter if you had kids to give it all to. Whose is it going to be? You know, they're going to leave too. Life is very brief. Don't make those foolish plans. Don't forget the brevity of life. Don't forget and leave God out of things. This thing is so uncertain. And then here's verse 17. Let me read it. Let me read the verse. James chapter 4, verse 17. Once again, therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. There's another mistake. It's the mistake of, I tried to have peas, but I didn't. Foolish postponements or delays. We like to delay things. You ever heard the word procrastination?
Yes.
Foolish delays. Procrastination is not a new word to a lot of us. I mean, it may be a new word, but it ain't a new thing, is it? There's a couple of notable examples in the Old Testament. One of them was Pharaoh, back over the book of Exodus, chapter number 8. You remember Moses went before Pharaoh and all of those plagues, those 7 plagues that God sent across to Egypt. One of them was frogs. Frogs. And you know, I had forgotten this. I'd let the thought of it slip. But Moses put his stick down and frogs came on the face of the earth in Egypt. And then those sorcerers, those magicians of Pharaoh threw their stick down and more frogs came on the face of the earth in Egypt. Can you imagine going to bed and there'd be frogs all in your bed? Can you imagine going to cook, open your oven up and it's full of frogs? Can you imagine? And here's what it said, the whole land stank. It stunk with frogs. Can you imagine? Frogs. I mean, we think, they're cute little toad frogs out there. Yeah, but can you imagine them being in your bed? Can you imagine them being in your living room? Can you imagine them jumping everywhere? Can you imagine taking a bath with them? Can you imagine all them things, all them frogs? And Moses went to Pharaoh and he said, are you going to let my people go? God said, are you going to let my people go? Pharaoh said, yeah, I'm going to let them go. If you get rid of these frogs. And Moses gave him an ultimatum. Okay, you do this, let us go. Pharaoh said, no, I'll just take one more night with them frogs. He procrastinated. I'll just take one more night with them frogs. You see, the leader of all, can you imagine what them Egyptians felt toward Pharaoh when it got through the grapevine, what he said? All you had to do was say, take them away, let them go. And you know, they began to cry in the ears of Pharaoh and say to him, let them go, let them go. Especially after all the firstborn of Egypt died. He said, no, I'll just take one more night. He procrastinated. He postponed it. There was a man by the name of Belshazzar over the book of Daniel. It says that he was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, and sometimes in the Bible says the son of, he was one of the sons or a grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, I believe probably his grandson. But God, as they were having that big party in Daniel chapter 5, I mean, he had princes, he had kings from everywhere coming into the city and country of Babylon. Y'all know where that's at, don't you? Y'all ever heard of Baghdad? There's still walls there from the city of Babylon, still some of the stones and the bricks that masons put up when they created those huge walls around Babylon. Well, here's Belshazzar, the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, and he just defied God. And even though he knew his grandfather had turned toward God at one time, he knew the story. He knew what God had done in the life of Nebuchadnezzar, his grandfather. And he defied the living God and said, I don't want him. He said, I'm just going to have one more party. And he had a huge party. I mean, they said huge. It was probably so big and so many there that he had people cater in fruit and had meat catered in of all kinds. They said, I was reading some historical accounts of that time of Babylon, that they would bring clusters of grapes hanging over elephants into that big city and go inside. And he was inside those unpenetrable walls of Babylon. 2 huge walls on the outside of that city. Nobody could get in, but God could.
Mm-hmm.
And God, the Bible says there appeared a hand in midair. And a finger from that hand that wrote on the wall. And on the wall it said that, I'm going to have to go. Daniel chapter 5. Y'all know what the book of Daniel is? Remember this morning? Daniel, Hosea, Joel. All right. Daniel chapter number 5. Listen to this. Mene, tekel upharsin. That's those words that were written on the wall by the finger of God. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom, listen to this, and finished it. Your kingdom's over, boy. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. You ain't got what you thought you had. Perez, upharsin, includes this word Perez. Thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. You know what he said? It's kind of like what he said to that rich farmer when he said, your soul today, your soul is going to be required of you. And that night, Belshazzar died. You see, he's making all kind of plans, having a great big party, celebrating the world, celebrating his world, celebrating his plans. While Saddam Hussein was doing that too. But look what happened to him. He died. We knew a young man by the name of John. What was his name? You remember the boy who went to county line? John and David. John was in Iraq. He was stationed in Baghdad. John. Anyway, John was stationed over there, and right after Saddam Hussein was killed, hung by the neck, matter of fact, that's the way they killed him. I mean, we're talking about Saddam Hussein, and you know they celebrated his death in that day. He sent his day of grace away, what he done. But John was over there, and he called his mama. He said, Mama, turn the TV on. They told me that all this is being aired live on the news. And his mama turned the TV on, and John's sitting astraddle on the front of a tank, astraddle of the barrel, you know, that fires them big old bullets. I call them missiles now. He's sitting astraddle of that, and the tank is pulling a statue of Saddam Hussein through the streets of Baghdad. They celebrated his death. He was an evil man. You see, he had all kind of plans. Everything's going to go his way. But it didn't go his way, it went God's way.
That's right.
That changes everything. So don't postpone things. Don't think that everything's all right. And there's two areas that we need to watch out for. Two areas of life where this is vitally important. Number one, the matter of salvation. Paul said to the church at Corinth, today is the day of salvation. Now's the time. Don't put it off. We come to revival services. Many times throughout a revival service, I may forget about it. God may not bring it to my mind this week, but if He does, I'll say it. I always say, don't wait till the last night to make the decision that God's moving on your heart about. The last night may never come. Hey, it's very important. The matter of salvation is. There's a lot of people in the pits of hell, men and women, who said, I'll do it later. The problem with that is the fact that later may never come. It may never come. There was a man by the name of Felix. And Felix said to Paul, I'll just do it another time. I don't have time right now. And Felix's time never came. Not only the matter of salvation, but I wanted to get to this one. The matter of service is very and vitally important. Serving God. When we put off what we know we ought to do in the Lord's work, it's sin. That's what He said. But he that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it's sin. So when we put it off, that's sin. It's called, we call it the sin of omission. We've omitted what we know God wants us to do. I mean, there's a price to pay for this sin. There's some very important areas where we need to act and act today. We're to obey God's commands. He commanded us to do things. The time to live for Jesus is now. A better day and a more opportune time may never present itself. The time to witness is now. The time to preach is now. The time to worship is now. The time to go in His name is now. Not another time, now. Now's the time to take care. The time to work is now. It's not later. John chapter 9. The Gospel of John chapter number 9. Verse number 4. John chapter 9 verse 4. Listen to what Jesus said. He's talking here. He's talking about this. He said, I must work the works of Him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. There's going to come a time where it's going to be over. It'll be too late. He said the time is coming when no man can work. I got to work today. The time to do good. It's now. It's not later. Now's the time. The book of Proverbs. I'll give you a few scriptures here. Proverbs chapter number 3. Proverbs chapter number 3. And verse number 27 and 28. Listen to this. He said, withhold not good from them to whom it is due. When it is in the power of thine hand to do it, say not unto thy neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I'll give when thou hast it by thee. In other words, I could add right now. You got it by you right now. And you tell somebody that's in need out there, he said, and you say, well, let's go on tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll give you something. And he said, you got it right there right now. Give it to him now. Now's the time. I mean, why not do it now? We put it off. God spoke to us and said, here's what I want you to do. You say, well, okay, I'll take care of it tomorrow. No, you got it right now. God said now. Today's the day of salvation. Now's the accepted time. You know, when you know, now's the time. We're to obey God's commands. We're to surrender to God's will. Where are the Isaiahs? You remember what Isaiah said? I like to do it this way. When God said, it's said by Isaiah, you know, when the angel come to the tongs of the altar, and he took that live coal off of the altar and he put it on the tongue of Isaiah, and then spoke and said, who will go for us? Isaiah always said, I like to have fun with it. Isaiah said, me, here am I, send me. Where are the Isaiahs? That'll cry out, here am I, send me. The time to serve God is now. The time to go all out for Jesus is now, not later. People will die and go to hell before this day is over with. What are we going to do about it? Tomorrow may never come. What a tragedy it would be to have to face God with unfinished business hanging our heads. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people stand before the judgment seat of Christ. That's when Christians will stand before God and will stand before Jesus and be judged for the things that we did or did not do in this life. I would imagine there's going to be many of us, and I'm going to include us, that'll, at times, things will be brought up and we'll hang our heads. We'll shake our heads on me. Why did I not do it? There's going to be times when God's going to show us, I don't know that there might be even a picture or a photo in our minds that'll come up when we stand there and He shows us the picture of somebody that we have the opportunity to tell about Jesus and tell them how to be saved, and God had them ready and we didn't do it, and He said, look at your hands. And their blood's on our hands because they died and went to hell without Jesus. Let me give you this, and I said this morning as we were closing Sunday school, that I was going to close with something that I have in my notes. It's a little story about a man by the name of George W. Truett. Anybody ever heard of George W. Truett? You may have heard of him, don't remember who he is. He was a long-time pastor many years ago in the First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, way back there. One time he was preaching in one of his sermons that he preached. He gave his testimony of his first efforts to win a friend of his to Jesus. They were in a revival meeting, and the preacher was coming over to the school every day and speaking. And he had a friend named Jim. And he and Jim went to the services one night. George Truett, just a young Christian, didn't know how to witness or anything, but he had a burden for his friend. So he said to his friend, Jim, let's go tonight. He said, I'll walk down the aisle with you. He said, Jim, give your life to Christ tonight. And Jim said, I can't do it tonight, George. Let me off tonight. If I still feel this way, I'll do it tomorrow night. But let me off tonight, George. George Truett said he went to school the next day and Jim wasn't there. He said he didn't think a whole lot about it. He went to school the next day and Jim wasn't there. So he went over to Jim's house, and when he got over there, Jim's mother said to him, haven't you heard? And to make a long story short, what happened is that Jim had become seriously sick with fever and with pneumonia. So George talked the mother into letting him stay there on through the afternoon and on into the night. And late that night, in a delirium, Jim began to speak. And here's what Jim was saying in his delirium. He was saying, not tonight, George. Let me off. If I feel this way tomorrow night, I'll do it tomorrow night, but let me off tonight, George. And that's the way he went out to meet God. He went out without Christ because he said, let's just wait till tomorrow. You don't know what'll be on the morrow. It's but a vapor. Here a little while and then it passes away. We don't know about tomorrow. I know who holds tomorrow, yes, but I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be here. So it is urgent tonight, this afternoon. It is urgent that I preach this and I say this so that we'll all have this in mind. We need to do what's right now. We need to take care of business with God right now and not later.